The New York Rangers signed a pair of former Ducks in free agency, the hard-hitting Sam Carrick and former second-round pick Bo Groulx, and we've got Jason Hernandez from Locked On Ducks to weigh in on both players, plus a hypothetical trade scenario involving former New York Ranger Frank Vatrano.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1109 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. So I want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And of course, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So today, yes, special crossover edition. Been a while since we've done one of these, but they're always a fun time. We're going to be talking with Jason Hernandez of Locked On Anaheim Ducks after the Rangers signed a pair of former Ducks during the offseason here. One of them is Sam Carrick, who obviously looks ticketed for the fourth line center role previously held by Barclay Goodrow. The other is Bo Groulx, former second-round pick by the Ducks, probably looks ticketed for the AHL, barring something unexpected. But we talk about both those players and learn a little bit more about them thanks to Jason Hernandez, our good friend from Locked On Anaheim Ducks. And yeah, a lot of other stuff as well, the state of both franchises and the future of Frank Vatrano and whether or not there could be any chance that he comes back to the New York Rangers via a trade at some point this upcoming season. So yeah, let's go ahead and play our special crossover episode with Jason Hernandez of Locked On Anaheim Ducks. All right, so with no further ado, let's go ahead and kick off this very special crossover edition of Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On Anaheim Ducks. This is John Chick of Locked On New York Rangers, joined by my good friend Jason Hernandez of Locked On Ducks. And Jason, last couple of seasons here, we've seen some movement between these two teams. A couple of Rangers become Ducks, a couple of Ducks become Rangers. Yep. And of course, this offseason, a couple of relatively small free agent pickups for the Rangers, but they pick up former Ducks Sam Carrick and Bo Groulx. And of the two, Carrick, the more recognizable name, so might as well start with him. Spends part of 6 seasons with the Ducks, traded this past deadline season to Edmonton, and then signs with the Rangers 3 years at $1 million per season. And the Rangers were in the market for a fourth-line center after they placed Barclay Goodrow on waivers, and he's, of course, now with the Sharks. But, Jason, what can you tell us about Sam Carrick and just in general, what he brings to the table?
So here's what the Ducks are missing and what the Rangers are gaining. A solid fourth-line guy, a reliable fourth-line guy, someone that is going to do very good on the penalty kill. Sam Carrick does have a penchant for getting those shorthanded goals. He's very good at deflecting the puck into the neutral zone. Just a solid active stick, especially on the PK. So if you want to talk about someone that's a killing specialist, then that's your guy. And that's someone that I think the Rangers needed, right? They needed a PK specialist.
Yeah, they've had a good penalty kill in recent seasons, but, obviously, Alex Wennberg comes over and he's just a rental and he's signed with a different team. I'm forgetting off the top of my head who he ended up with. Maybe, do you remember?
I don't.
It's somebody on the West Coast, I think. But regardless, he's gone. Obviously, Barclay Goodrow's gone. And if they want to continue having an elite penalty killer, they're going to need some other guys to step up. So it does sound like, going by what you just said, that Sam Carrick could be one of those guys. Something else that, Ranger fans, that they want more physicality and more grit and more toughness and more size and all that good stuff. I mean, I think just about every team wants that. And I do think the Rangers have a physical team, but out-muscled a little bit by the Panthers in the conference final. Looking at Carrick and, his hit totals over the years, does seem to play a physical brand of hockey. Is he the guy that is noticeable in that regard? Is he out there throwing the body every single night? Because Ranger fans will definitely like that.
Yes, and he really took on that role when he became the captain of the San Diego Gulls. So this is going back to 2016, 2017. Sam Carrick was one of the most loved captains for the San Diego Gulls, the Ducks AHL affiliate. And that's when he really began to take on that role of, I'm going to protect my teammates. I'm going to, help those guys out and get in there whenever I can. And he's not afraid to take on the big boys. I mean, he's taken on guys like Jacob Doty. He's taken on some big, he took on Boko Amama once, who, is kind of like, he's a fighter. Also, because he was with the Ducks affiliate, he also was not afraid to take on, you ready for this? Curtis McDermott, that name,
Oh yeah, I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he got into a pretty good scuffle with Rempa this season, right? I think he did.
I don't remember, but yeah.
But you've seen McDermott fight.
Yes.
The fact that Sam Carrick took him on once during the freeway face-off between the Ducks affiliate and the Kings affiliate, that tells you the kind of character that he has. Is he is not afraid. He will get in there and get those quality fights. So that's good. But as far as the hitting is concerned, he will get those checks and he will finish his checks and not be afraid to take on some of those big guys. You need that especially in that division that he's entering. You need someone like that to kind of complement Rempa and maybe take some of the heat off of him as well. I mean, you don't just need one or two guys to do all the fighting. You could have someone else pick up the slack in case of another line brawl at face-off. Because
you never know.
We've seen that happen, right, John?
I mean, he'd fit right in for that. He'd join the party. I'm sure he would.
Oh, he would revel in that.
Yeah, for sure.
But as far as the hitting is concerned, he will get to the dirty areas. That's one aspect of his game that I loved. Is he will get to those dirty areas where some other players will not. He will trap the puck on a 1-goal lead if need be. He'll chip pucks away. He'll get him out to the neutral zone if defending a 1-goal lead. He's elite at that. And I think that's something that the Ducks do miss. Just kind of going on as far as Ducks related and how bad the PK got post Sam Carrick. Before the trade, the Ducks PK was hovering around 80-something%. After the trade, after Carrick and Henrique went to Edmonton, the PK after the trade was almost, you ready for this? 60%.
Oof.
For the penalty kill, John.
It's basically flip a coin. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
The Ducks got scored on so much on the power play after Sam Carrick left. And that's when you realize what you're missing and what's gone from the Ducks now. So this is a good get for the Rangers. The fact that New York got him for just about $1 million, I would consider that a steal. Most teams pay their fourth liners a 1.5 to 1.9. Getting him at that low rate, that's a steal. If he is completely healthy for the season, I think Ranger fans are absolutely going to love the heck out of him.
Something else that I got to ask you about, because, he's not an offensive juggernaut. I mean, we know that, but, he does score some goals every once in a while. Can he get you a dirty goal? Because, the Rangers, I think another thing that fans kind of lament is that there aren't enough of those greasy goals, those stuffing goals on scrambles in front of the net. They score some really nice highlight reel goals, but you need some dirty goals now and then. Can he get you a couple of those a season? I mean, is he capable of that?
That's all he does. Okay. Aside from the shorthanded specialist that he is, he gets those dirty goals right in front of the net, or he likes to cause chaos with whoever is trying to defend him or whoever's in front of the net. He will park himself kind of maybe 10 to 15 feet along the crease just in case of a juicy rebound, which he is adept at. So if you want someone that will get you those kind of goals, Carrick, he fits that mold, especially in the fourth line for the Rangers. Yeah, he would fit that mold very well.
Awesome. So one more question that I want to ask you about Carrick, and then I'll ask you a question or two about Groulx, and we'll start talking about the Ducks a little bit after that. But you touched on this a second ago. Interesting fun fact to me about Carrick. He has been a captain or an alternate captain in 8 different seasons in the AHL. Like, he's always got a letter on the sweater when he's in the AHL. Look, I don't expect him to come in and be the leader of the Rangers, but Barclay Goodrow, he was an alternate captain, kind of a hard-nosed, respected veteran in that locker room. I mean, can Carrick kind of be that dude too? I know he'll be the new guy in the room, but can he step into a role like that?
Maybe not wearing a letter in the NHL because he never has, but as far as being a good veteran presence in the locker room, yes, absolutely he can. You mentioned that he was one of the captains with the Marlies back in the day, and also with the Rockford. And all those years in San Diego, he either had a C or an A. The one exception was when Chase DeLeo was the captain. And he does bring a leadership role. And it's also kind of a calming leadership, if that makes sense. Is he will bring guys together on, I think, the most important moments of a game. One thing that I do like about Sam Carrick, and this is kind of like just a kind of out there, he's one of those guys that will always be the first one to congratulate or console the goaltender. I noticed that on almost every single game. After a big win, he would rush over and hug whoever it was. And I remember this specifically, it was a devastating loss in 2022 against 2021 against Bakersfield. He was the first one to console current Ducks backup, should be starter, Lukáš Dostal. He was the first one to console Dosti and say, hey, that's on us. That's not on you. That's someone that you want in your locker room.
Yeah, for
can
sure.
Can I throw one more fun fact out there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
that I think is interesting.
We're here for it.
So Sam Carrick, he's a bit of a character in the locker room, likes to joke around a bit. He also loves his food. He is part owner of a syrup company, and look this up, Rangers fans, called Carrick Bros. It's Carrick Bros, and they specialize in maple syrup. So when you had Sam Carrick and his brother both on San Diego, we would call them the Maple Bros.
Nice.
And they actually had a special Goals edition maple syrup that they had out here in SoCal for the San Diego Goals.
You know, it's funny hearing you say that because that does kind of ring a bell. I think when the Rangers first signed him, I might have seen like a tweet about that whole thing, but probably forgot about it just as quickly. But that's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to give Carrick Bros, right? Carrick Bros. Okay. Yeah. I think myself and all other Ranger fans are gonna have to give it a shot. We'll at least we'll owe him that much. But
absolutely.
I figure, quick couple of questions here about Bo Groulx. Not exactly a household name, and second round pick for the Ducks back in 2018. Mm-hmm. Probably ticketed for the AHL to start this upcoming season, but he's here with the Rangers on a 1-year deal. Parts of 3 seasons in the NHL, all at the Ducks, 65 games. That includes 45 games last year. Yep. In all those games, just 1 goal, which is an empty netter, and 4 assists. So I'm kind of hoping, is he known as a defensive specialist? Because obviously there's not a lot of offense there.
Yeah, he really is. Okay. Just another good specialist, someone else that kind of paired with Carrick when it came to the penalty killing when they were both in San Diego is you would have Carrick on one side, you'd have Groulx on the other side on the kill more often than not. And Groulx is another one that will get you those shorthanded assists or once in a while shorthanded goals. When I look at his AHL stats or look at him with the goals, that's something that he was also good at was being a defensive specialist, but also much like Carrick, which I forgot to mention, is they're both face-off specialists, especially in the defensive zone. So that is important. You need someone that will get you those face-off wins whenever you're down on the PK or whenever you're in the neutral zone just outside the blue line. They're both very good at that. So I could see Groulx getting a few games, but the reason he got 40 or so many games last season was because the Ducks were so injured last season. Everybody got hurt at some point last season. So Groulx had extended time more than I think most people expected in Anaheim. But he will contribute. I mean, if he doesn't contribute in New York, then he will certainly contribute and be a top line, maybe top line or second line with Hartford.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does there. And obviously, if nothing else, you've at least got some organizational depth with him and somebody that has played in the NHL. One more question. Do you think he can be an NHL regular, or is this one of those guys that's kind of going to be a career swingman and probably end up spending more time in the AHL than the NHL, if you had to take a guess at it?
So the term I use for guys like that is I call them tweeners. Yes. Guys that go between the NHL and the AHL constantly that are going to be those kind of guys. To be fair, I thought Sam Carrick was going to be one of those guys for the longest time, and then he broke through a couple of seasons ago. So, anything's possible. But I think Groulx, for me, I think he's a tweener.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So I figure, we'll keep everything rolling here in just a second, Jason. And, for Ranger fans and Duck fans, definitely stick around. Going to shift our attention to the Ducks a little bit and talk about their prospects for this upcoming season and see if they can, turn a corner, maybe even end a lengthy playoff drought. And we will do that in just a second.
All right. Now, a brief word from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, underline Duck fans, is what you need to bring championships and also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for, much like the Rangers. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
All right, and we also want to ask everybody, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn on the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And so, Jason, we'll keep everything rolling here. And, the Ducks, obviously a team that's been going through a rebuild here. It seems like kind of as an outsider looking in, you obviously watch a lot more Ducks games than I do, but it feels like they're, finally starting to get the pieces in place a little bit. Last playoff appearance was 2017, 2018. How do you feel about where this team is in the rebuild? And will this be one of their better seasons that they've had in a while? Maybe even push for a playoff spot?
I just said it. Patience very much underlined in Anaheim.
Yes.
How much patience do Duck fans have? I think patience is beginning to wear a little bit thin, not because of the draft, but because of free agency or lack thereof. The Ducks didn't make any noise in day one. In fact, they were the only team that did not make a signing in day one of free agency, which is already not a good sign in and of itself. But as far as drafting is concerned, look, the Ducks have drafted well in the recent past. 2 years ago, Mason McTavish, surprise at number 3. Last year, I know the Ducks shocked everybody by not taking Adam Fantilli, and I know all the other hosts are like, what? And then I saw again all the Locked On hosts going, Beckett Seneca? Like, what? I mean, I know y'all were probably as surprised as I was. Am I right in assuming that?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty surprised, obviously looking at all the different mock drafts and everything. But when it comes to the draft, I mean, what did we know for sure this year? Celebrini was going to go number 1. And after that, I mean, anybody could fall at any time. And did you feel good about the Seneca pick?
I do. And watching him live at development camp last week, I could see why the Ducks picked him up. And he's totally a Pat Verbeek, Greg Cronin kind of pick. Is someone that's going to do very well in transition, someone that's going to net you goals. But he's not the player from development camp that I'm most excited about. The player that I'm most excited about by far, and a rival of yours, is still pissed off about this. The Flyers are still pissed off about Cutter Gauthier, who he was the best player. I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. He looked like the best player in development camp last week. He was. He's going to get you highlight reel goals, but he's also going to get you goals that are just going to pick the corner. I mean, just clean shots, pick the corner, beat a goalie easy with that fast snapshot of his. Yeah, I'm most excited about Cutter Gauthier personally. Not that I'm not excited about Seneca or Stian Solberg. Those guys are going to be fantastic. And I think the reason I say patience underlined, it's going to take a year or two for those guys to fully develop. In the meantime, you have other players that are still developing, like a Pavel Mintyukov, like a Leo Carlsson, Mason McTavish. He's still developing. McTavish can barely drink. They're still young. They're still very young. So when I say have patience, I mean have patience. Are the Ducks going to make the playoffs this season? I have to be honest. I mean, I hate lying to the Locked On fans. Probably not. But do I think they could at least compete this season? Yes, I do think they could. If Zegras has a fully healthy season and plays more than a couple dozen games, then they'll be better automatically. If, I don't know, some guy like Mason McTavish decides to choose violence and just hit everybody and score 30 plus goals, yeah, they will automatically be better. If Pavel Mintyukov and Leo Carlsson really begin to start shining, then this Ducks team could be like, I mean, they could be scary, but like in a weird way, because I think most teams are not going to see it coming. They're going to run over the Ducks or look to run over the Ducks. They could be the one team in the National Hockey League this season that I think opponents are going to overlook because of what happened the last few seasons, because they look at the roster and go, oh, God, these guys are young. Like, what the F? Like 20, 21, 22, 19?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, there's a couple of teams every season, I feel like, where maybe they don't have the best record, but they're one of those gotcha kind of teams where they can get anybody on any given night. And if you take them lightly, if you're not playing your best, I mean, there's very few easy wins in the NHL anymore. And if maybe the Ducks are that team with, all this youth and this exuberance here. And, I'm sure a lot of these guys embrace the challenge of wanting to be the group that turns things around there. So maybe they are. Maybe they're the gotcha team this year.
Yeah, especially when you put Cutter Gauthier into the mix, who's not afraid to throw down. He's also not afraid to, I guess, live up to the moment.
They also, in the first round, they had 2 first-round picks. They also had the number 23 pick. I'm not sure how to pronounce his first name, I'll be completely honest, but Solberg, the defenseman.
Stian Solberg.
Stian, okay. So it's just how it looks. I probably overthought it there. But yeah, I mean, they take him and, second of 2 first-round picks. How do you feel about that one? Because they've stockpiled a lot of, early-round picks the last few years.
I actually talked about Solberg for more than a minute on prior podcasts before the draft because I was very high on him. He's like just a hard-hitting defenseman, but with a little more speed and a little bit more skill, who's got an extremely good active stick. He's a play killer. That's someone that you need. Someone that is going to be very defensively responsible. Not the biggest scorer, but someone who is going to help you along the blue line and someone that's just going to get you stops. Something that the Ducks haven't had the last few seasons. 2 years ago, the Ducks were historically bad. They allowed the most shots on goal in one season, and no one's going to break that record anytime soon. So the Ducks were looking for someone to have that kind of tenacity on the defensive end. And the fact that they pulled off that trade to move up in the draft, because the Ducks were originally thinking it was going to be an early 20s pick when they made that trade to the Oilers. And then the Oilers had to go and make that run. So what did the Ducks do? We're not standing at 31. We're going to trade up. And that was the coup de grace to the end of day one, I thought. Pat Verbeek hit a home run with this pick. Ducks fans are going to love him immensely. And also, we had a block party. We called it a flock party at the Ponds right after they got drafted. Solberg let out a few F-bombs in front of the Ducks faithful during the flock party, which prompted our host to say, hey, there's kids here. Solberg is going to be a great interview, guys.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that for sure. You need a little personality on your team, whether it's the Rangers or the Ducks, you need somebody to bring that kind of that energy into the room for sure. Yep. I figure we'll keep everything rolling just a second. Couple other final thoughts on the Rangers, the Ducks. I definitely want to talk about Frank Vatrano because Ranger fans always wax poetic about him. Yep. Ducks have a big decision to make on him. So we'll get to that and some other things here in just a minute. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers and Locked On Anaheim Ducks is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. Save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, so we'll keep everything rolling here. John Chick with Locked On New York Rangers, Jason Hernandez of Locked On Anaheim Ducks. And Jason, I talked about this just a second ago, but Frank Vatrano, for somebody who only spent half a season with the New York Rangers, me and a lot of Ranger fans just love the guy. We love the energy that he brought, played with a little bit of an edge, great speed, was always hustling, has a nasty shot, and certainly not afraid of just shooting the puck in general. But as I alluded to just a second ago, Ducks have a big decision to make here. He's coming off that all-star season. How many goals was it? I have it written down here. 37 goals.
37. Yeah,
37. So what happens next, man? Do they try to strike an extension with him this offseason? Do they see how the year plays out? I mean, just kind of give us a feel for where that stands and what your thoughts are on what they should do with Vatrano.
That is the $64,000 question, isn't it? What are the Ducks going to do with Frank Vatrano? I think depends a little bit on a couple of things. It's going to depend on if the Ducks want to give him that money. The Ducks have a crap ton of cap space right now, so they could pay him theoretically. They really could. And it's also going to depend, I think, on what the Ducks do in the first half of the season. If the Ducks somehow get off to a good start and they maintain something for the first half of the season, he might be more apt to stick around, and the Ducks might be more willing to sign an extension right then and there to just avoid all of that. If the Ducks have another poor start like they have the past couple seasons, then they're going to look, as you probably can guess, to sell. The Ducks have done that time and time and time and time again the past few seasons. Hello, Boston. That being said, I don't know if Frank Vatrano is going to stick around, because at some point you've got to think about trying to win games and trying to get to a good team. And I know there was those heavy rumors about Frank Vatrano going to the Rangers last trade deadline. I think the reason that a lot of teams kind of buckled on that is because Vatrano still had another year left on his contract. But a year left on that contract with under $4 million, I consider that a steal for the Ducks. I consider that one of the best signings of the Pat Verbeek era. If you can get that kind of production at under $4 million per season, then you look really good. And I project that Vatrano's going to get well north of $5 million on his next contract, especially if he has another 35-plus goal season. Then he'll be looking at above $5 million. And I guess the question then becomes, if he doesn't wind up in Anaheim, can other teams afford that? And I would think the Rangers could afford that, I think, right?
It'll depend on some things. I mean, right now they have about $8 million in cap space, but they've got to get Braden Schneider under contract. They've got to get Ryan Lindgren under contract. They're both RFAs. So, the money's starting to get tight at that point. And, I mean, they could afford him probably at the deadline this season. If they were to strike a trade, next year's going to be almost impossible, because that's when Igor needs to get paid, Lafreniere needs to get paid, Keandre Miller, maybe even Capo Caco. So I don't think it would work then. But
okay, so I'll ask you this then. If the Rangers do want to go after Vatrano, but they also want to keep him and extend him, out of those names that you mentioned, because this is an interesting question now.
Yes.
Which of those names are the Rangers most likely be willing to let go?
So, I mean, the answer would be Caco, but he's also the one that's going to command the lowest salary, unless he just goes off this year, because he signed a one-year deal as an RFA to stay with the Rangers for at least one more year, assuming they don't trade him. But of those players I just mentioned, I mean, I know some people are looking at Igor right now, and they're worried about what that contract's going to look like, but I just don't see how, when you're in a championship window, you can possibly even think about letting that guy walk. I mean, he's kind of got the upper hand on the Rangers right now, and can almost, I mean, it can't be like a blank check, but in a way he can almost name his price. Because if he's not the Ranger goalie, then who is? I mean, I love Jonathan Quick. He did a great job last year, but the dude's like 38. I mean, they've got Dylan Garand in the AHL, but are you really going to do that? Just throw him into the NHL and, hey, you're our franchise goalie now. So they got to hang on to him. And Lafreniere, based on the season that he just had, and the fact that such a highly regarded player when he was selected first overall. I mean, the sky is the limit for this kid. He was unbelievable last year. So you got to keep him. I think Keandre Miller might be the one. And who knows, man? Maybe we're looking into the future. Maybe we're talking about some kind of Miller for Vatrano swap. I mean, I don't know.
Ooh.
That actually could make some sense.
That could.
It's right off the top of my head. So I'm not going to like sign off on it right now if I'm the Ranger GM. But
what is Miller's contract at?
What's that?
What's his contract at?
He, I want to say, is around $4 million. I think he might be. Let's go ahead and look that up right now.
We can't because Cap Friendly's dead. We have to look at the
Cap Friendly's dead, so we're gonna head over to Puckpedia here.
Puckpedia now.
I believe Cap Friendly just went offline today. Is that right?
Yeah, they did. Lucky that I did an episode right before Cap Friendly shut down.
That's it,
so
man.
I lucked out.
Okay, so Miller. $3.87 million for this season, and then next season he is an RFA with arbitration rights. So,
ooh, wow.
Yes.
So that's a straight up swap, because that's about what Frank Vatrano's making as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like if the Rangers were to do that, Vatrano's going to only be here for one season, based on all the reasons that I just said. But if the Rangers feel like they can't afford to hang on to Keandre Miller anyway, and it gets near the deadline, but then it's like who replaces Keandre Miller in the lineup, and that could be a problem. So that's a tough call, man. I'd really have to sit down and think about it. But as far as just winging it here, you and me, and coming up with a fantasy trade, there's maybe something to that. I don't know, but I'd have to think about it a lot more.
I mean, there's possibilities, but there's also possibilities that there could be like a salary dump that the Ducks could take on. Like if there's part of a salary that you need to dump, if someone is severely underperforming. But that's also assuming the Ducks have another really bad season before the deadline. I mean, there's a lot of factors and variables that can go into this. I mean, it's no guarantee that the Ducks are going to be like bottom team again with all the guys coming up. So you never know. But I would say more likely than not.
Yeah. If there was a contract that the Rangers would want to offload, it would definitely be Jacob Trouba, $8 million. But you can't do that either. Like you can't trade Keandre Miller away and say also take Jacob Trouba, because now you're trading away, two of your defensemen that are in the lineup every night. So you wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
But I don't know. There's definitely some possibilities, and we've seen the Rangers and Ducks. I mentioned right at the top of the episode, it seems like a decent amount of your GM right now, a decent amount of players that have played for both teams, and who knows? Maybe they're overdue for a trade at some point. But
maybe
we'll see how that goes. Another former Ranger, got to ask about my former Rangers anytime we do these crossover episodes. Hasn't gone as well. They signed him the same offseason as they did with Frank Vatrano.
For a lot more money.
Yes, more money. About to enter year 3 of a 5-year, $25 million deal. He's done okay with the Ducks, 41 points in each of the last 2 seasons, but that's a little much to pay for, 41 points. And there's other aspects of hockey, but he's there mostly for offense. Just your thoughts on Strome and how he's done, and how it looks going forward.
Strome has played like a middle six player, but you shouldn't be paying a middle six player $5 million per season, which I think is your point that you're making. It's a good point. When you look at both contracts, the Vatrano contract and the Strome contract, when you look at them like the macro, like when you look at the entirety of it, the Vatrano contract looks like a steal, whereas the Strome contract it doesn't look like a dud, not a complete dud. He is still contributing wherever he can. And part of the lower numbers is really a residue of how bad the Ducks as a whole performed. So it's not just all on Strome. However, you've got to perform at least a little bit better down the stretch. And you've got to put the numbers up. And only 41 points is not going to cut it for that kind of contract. And now there's talks of, does he even belong in the first line? Probably not. Does he even belong in the second line? Where do you put him in the lineup? And I've seen some mock lineups that have Strome in the third line. Is it prudent to pay a third liner $5 million per season? Most would say no, right?
Right. Yeah. A little steep.
So it's not really like, I'm not going to say it's a disappointment, but it is not going as well as promised.
I think that's a fair way to look at it. Somebody that can contribute, but all those years playing with Panarin, I'm sure that helped him along a little bit. And I think, everybody was probably aware of that, but You know, he did his part too when he was at the Rangers for sure.
Yep. I have a solution. Put him with Cutter Gauthier and see the numbers rise.
That's it. Maybe that happens. You know, that could give him a little bit of a jolt there.
Can you tell who I'm really high on, guys?
Yes. Big Cutter Gauthier guy over here.
Yep.
So, I figure we can call it there, JD. You know, the Rangers and Ducks play each other relatively early in the season at MSG Saturday, October 26th. So, if you're up for another pregame, postgame crossover, whatever we want to do, I think that could be a lot of fun.
Oh, you know it. You know I'm down for that.
Absolutely. So, Ranger fans and Duck fans, thank you guys as always, and we will see you next time.
Yep. By the way, shout out my buddy Tim O'Brien, who's a big Rangers fan, is our in-arena host for the Firebirds. So I know he loves whenever we do these. So
Tim's a good guy. I'm pretty sure we're following each other on Twitter, and we've had a couple of interactions every once in a while. So big shout out to Tim for sure. Good guy. And we will see everybody next time.
All right.